We discuss leaves falling, tree chopping. We discuss lots of things here, in addition to stonks and where they may or may not go. Today we have the Binda, we have the Hell's Bells, and we have the Stockington. Mr. Binda, how are you on this fine, fine day, sir?
Present.
He's present.
Present
You know what I'm
and
asking.
accounted for. What?
What do I get? What's my present?
My presence.
Okay, well, we'll take that, Bender. We will definitely take that and be
Good.
very, very happy
See,
with
if you
that.
don't expect much more than that, we'll be fine.
Well, yeah, and that's interesting. I keep on going back to this life thing that I've been really, really messing with over the past several months is having to do with expectations. Expectations that we have for other people should be really fucking low, dude.
Yeah.
They really, really should. But the only expectations that we should have at the end of the day are for ourselves and not for others. That's I've been grappling with this and trying to work through it, and I think I'm close to coming out the other
It is
side.
much
I'll let
easier
you
that
know.
way.
It is. It is. Um, all right. Well,
But
so
on the
we.
flip side of that, so I get asked. My wife tells me all the time that I never ask for help, and I've kind of like
Mhm.
grown up with this idea that self-sufficient is very important, and it's a much better way to be when you when I was a scuba instructor. It was like they teach you that, like, be self-sufficient. Yeah, you're supposed to dive with a buddy, whatever. When you're an instructor, that's not the case. You need to be don't when you're getting on the boat, don't be handing your fins up to the people on the boat. Like, do it all yourself. Figure out how to be self-sufficient. And I guess growing up that way and then having to be that way in some of the jobs that I've had, it carries over to where it's like, you know what, forget it. I'll just do it myself. And my wife's like, why don't you never ask for help? And we don't argue much about it anymore, but it used to be she'd ask me to do something that she could do perfectly fine, right? I'm fine doing the stuff that you
Mhm.
can't do. Or there's certain things that you just refuse to do. But if you're like standing 5 feet from I don't know, uh, the dishes in the sink, and then you're like, hey, can you turn on the water and put some soap in there and rinse that pan out? And you're just standing, like, no, just go over and do it. We used to, and that's maybe a bad example, but it was like, if you're asking me to do something that you can absolutely do yourself, I just didn't get it. It's like, why would you do that? Why would you? Now I get it. It's a little different, but uh, that was a point of contention for a long time. I'm like, I don't ask you to do shit that I can do. I just go do it, right? But that's not really how the family unit works.
No, that's not how the family. That's not how friendships work either. Because I can just as easily make the case on the other side to where if there's something that you know that a friend can help you with that is easy for them to do and no big deal and whatever it is, if you don't ask them for help, if you're not like, hey, can you help me out here or something along those lines, if that individual then finds out about it later, you're actually insulting that individual in some capacity who would more than gladly assist you in whatever it is that you
That's
may
a
or
good
may
point.
not be struggling with.
That's a good point.
So it's like it kind of works both ways to where it's like when it comes to relationships, it's like a relationship really is a give and take, and it's like not everything has to be immediately reciprocal.
Right.
No, it's like, oh, you helped me chop down a tree, so now I have to go help you change a tire. It's like it doesn't necessarily work that way, or it's just, but it's like when it comes to relationship, managing those things, it's like I know in my life, in particular, when I find out that somebody is struggling with something that I could easily help them with, I'm like, dude, why the fuck wouldn't you reach out? Why wouldn't you let me know? And we only know what we know, what the other person may or may not be going through. So I think being available to friends in a lot of ways is important, and letting them know that those things are always open, because
It's
that's
interesting that you
ultimately
bring that up because there's
what.
been plenty of instances where uh, whether it's a friend or even a family member that knows absolutely nothing about computers goes and buys something right at Best Buy or whatever, and then asks me at some point like I can't get my Wi-Fi to connect. Could you come over? And then I'm going, did you buy a new computer? And they're like, yeah. I'm like, why would you not talk to me about this? Like, why wouldn't you have come to me and said, hey, I'm in the market for a new computer. What do you recommend? And instead, you got this piece of shit that I never would have had you buy. It's
Hmm.
like, why would you do that? But on the
Why would
flip
you do
side
that?
of that, it's, yeah, I mean, if it's something that I would struggle with, uh, maybe I'll ask. But I don't like being in debt to anybody for anything. So I kind of, and that's my own one of my, I guess, an issue is that if you do something for me and I can't repay it or return the favor or whatever, it's constantly in my head that shit I owe. And I don't like that.
That's rough. That's a rough way to operate. So,
I know.
but I'm going to I'm going to leave you with one thing on this, and then we can move into
Yeah.
the market. Um, the concept of unconditional love is applicable both to friends and family. Unconditional love is something that might be the most powerful thing and powerful element within the universe. And
But then you're getting
be,
back into the expectation thing of,
well,
okay,
no, you really aren't, because it's like, if we only do things in life with the mindset that we're going to get something in return, we're being selfish. Unconditional love is being selfless, not selfish.
and see, I'm
So
happy to
being
help other people not expecting anything back. However, my expectations for other people are so low that I don't, you know, I don't, when somebody helps me, then I don't think that they're in it for, nothing, I guess, because my expectations are very low.
well, it's like I think that ultimately there's a give and take, and I think the concept of what was it? Let me go back to my religious education. Was it agape? I think it's agape. I think that's the term. It's like unconditional love, giving of self with no expectation of return. That's something that ultimately is, I think, is what creates a strong relationship, whether it be friends, family. Um, Work is something different. Work is a completely different deal. But friends, family, that's it's a pretty powerful thing when used the right way. All right, so let's talk about something that got no love and did no love to help the market. That would be Nvidia. Nvidia ate a big dick, like the biggest dick that you can imagine. It gobbling up, it gobbled it and gobbled it real good. That conference call was one of the worst conference calls I think I've ever heard. Like literally, through the years of listening to these calls, it was just absolutely atrocious. They were. It's never a good thing when you. Here's another life thing. This show is going to be off the fucking rails. I can already tell. Uh, so it's like when you're faced with adversity, how you handle that adversity and the energy that you portray and you project out becomes more important than the actual dilemma that you're facing it in. And Nvidia, their executives sound like a bunch of whoop puppies that they just like, woe is me, going to the garden to eat worms. It's like it was just like, come on. There was no passion. There was no, hey, we got this, or hey, this is what we're doing, or there was none of that. It was just like, no, we got butt raped. We didn't really see it coming. We kind of told you part of the story, not the whole story, but here's the whole story, and we are offering you nothing good in any capacity as far as making this any better. It's unbelievable. It's like when you know how I'm a big fan of leadership, and either you have good management or bad management.
Hmm.
They really they really, really ate a dick. I don't know what the price action is going to be on that thing, but they really, really came up short, not only within the numbers, but within their conference call, which that's why they get paid the big bucks. That's why
Right.
they get paid the big bucks. You didn't show up. You didn't show. So, anyways, Nvidia, ate big dick. Outside of that, everything kind of is what it is. Data released this morning. The data was good. It was very positive. The dollar got an immediate pop and is looking like it might want to fade a little bit, which is good. The biggest thing that we have going on is Jackson Hole tomorrow. Powell's going to give his speech. Data is to the point to where he can absolutely say 100% we are going to jack rates. He can say that, or he can say absolutely nothing, and it is a nothing burger until more data comes out going into September. We're just in this really, really odd position. I know when I look at the charts, I have a plan that I'll go through here after Stockington is done, but overall we have to look at this. At least I am in a lot of capacity that if we don't see some type of risk off in some capacity, we saw a lot of short covering yesterday. If we don't see some type of a risk off, which we could pop and then fade to some extent, the market's going to go ahead and play chicken with Powell going into that speech. That's kind of what it feels like, that they're going to play chicken. So you tell me, Bender, what are you seeing on your side, bud?
Sure. I see this 4160 being very important to set up the day. We've got so 4160 is a key level. 4157 actually, and I'd have to go back and see if that's exactly where it's still at, but 4157 was the 377 on the 3-minute on ES, which it did bounce off of. But we've got a couple of lines right here in and around 4160. I think if we can, I would expect overnight inventory. I think I saw was I don't know, over 80% long, 85% or so. A lot of times that'll set up a little profit taking. Doesn't have to, but if we get a little pullback, 4154 again, something like that, that's fine. But I think under 4160, you start looking at 4142. There's a fib there. That's also the 50 MA on the 60-minute. Below that, you've got 4121 half. There's a fib there. So below 4160, that's what I would be looking for. Above 4160, you got 4167, which is the 89 MA on the 60-minute. 4174 is trendline resistance. The higher of the trend lines, the two trend lines that I gave yesterday coming off that gap, 4174 would be where that trend line comes in that Green Eggs and BAM pointed out. Above that, the midpoint of the Bollinger Bands on the daily comes in at 4187, which is about where we rejected overnight.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So that's what I'm looking at. I think 4160 is going to be key, as the market sort of figures out where it's going to start the day, that first 15, 20 minutes or so. I think where it's at in relation to 4160 will kind of set up, what I'll be looking for the remainder of the day.
No.
Well, I shouldn't say remainder of the day, but the next move.
The next move, right? Yeah. And it's like that. That's where it becomes so interesting. It's like I think semis are going to play a big piece of the next move. Massive piece of the next move. What the price action is in and around semis today, I think is going to be fairly indicative of where we're going, and I think the flow also at the same time. It's like I would love to get a pop up to 417, 417.50 on SPY. Would love to get that pop coming through there.
So and then somebody posted a chart last night, and I'm sorry, I can't remember who it was that posted it. but it showed kind of the setup or potential setup for a Head and Shoulders that would put the, essentially the right shoulder back up 42.25 ish. And that's kind of what I was looking for would be to see us go back up to, 42.25, 42.50, something like that. And then, as we talked about at the beginning of the month, um, you know, I guess I shouldn't say the plan, but, looking at everything, looking at the charts, it's like, yeah, I think we could trade, you know, over 4,200, closer to 4,300. That was kind of at the beginning of August. Now we've pulled back and we're, bouncing again. Potentially we see, back over 4,200 before a potential possible shit show in September.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that QT starts in September.
Yeah.
And at the same time, it's like we have a gap on SPY to fill to the upside, 421-ish area. Again?
And one to the downside.
Yeah, it's like that one.
391.
I'm gonna have, yeah, no, I'm gonna have to see like real Armageddon flow on Apple and Amazon for that shit to even come close to taking place. Because it's like that gap coincides with their earnings, that Apple and Amazon earnings when that thing was created. So it's like you're going to have to get Apple down to pre-ER levels as well as Amazon in order to even get close to filling that gap. That gap is inconsequential, to be honest with you, unless we start seeing Armageddon put. We need to see, some heavy money into 125 Apple puts in order for that to happen. Because you can't get SPY down there or the ES down there unless you're going to go ahead and strip Apple out. And so far the flow is not pointing in that direction.
Well, good.
Like 160 is about as low as you go as far as meaningful dollars on Apple as far as put flow.
So I think it's worth just, keeping that in mind, because if you start to see flow that says that shit, we might fill that gap in September, that we probably should take note of that.
Apple and Amazon are trigger.
Yeah.
It's like that's it. There's no doubt. Apple and Amazon are absolute trigger. And you have an event for Apple first week in or second week in September. It's like there's just a lot of things that could make that, to me, in my mind, make that gap extraordinarily irrelevant based on the flow.
So
that changed, sure.
Yeah. One thing I want to ask everybody in the room for help with is, when I know it's hard to digest sometimes because a lot of times what we're trading is intraday, right? The majority of the time what we're trading is on shorter time frames, intraday. So we start hearing Hells talk about, the fact that based on flow, man, they're really like, and I've heard you say September 16th a few times. Now, maybe it hasn't been enough. But one area that I think we can all help each other is just to kind of key into when he starts talking about Armageddon, and man, I don't know what's going on with the state, but they're setting it up that, we all getting some sex we don't want. Like they're coming after it. We need to be aware of that, and I know that historically when he's said those things with conviction, that and flow is setting up that it's going to be really ugly next month. It's easy to kind of dismiss it if you're in a shorter term position long and you're thinking in your head, oh, well, that's out to next month. Like, that doesn't really hold a lot of wait for, what I'm trying to do today, and then you move on to the next day, and it's like you forget about it, right? And you move on, and you pay attention to the flow that comes forward on the next day, but we tend to forget about all that shit that happened the previous day that says we're all going to die next month, or vice versa. But I think, man, you've been right, uh, and like big right on some of those calls like that where it's like, fuck, I should have taken, when I started hearing that, I should have been taking shit off that I'm, planning on holding for the next 2 months because I'll probably get a chance to buy it cheaper. Uh, and I just want everybody's help just to keep that, kind of keep tabs on that. When he starts seeing that and starts calling it out, we need to be paying attention and making note of it, because more often than not, we may still get a move up in the shorter term, for the next week even, but man, when they're setting up for some big move, next month, it's worth paying attention to, and I think we all need to try to remind each other that, okay, let's not forget that this is out there until they start closing those out. We still got to be prepared for that.
So if you're looking for a build out as far as Armageddon, it's November. November expiration is starting to come in really, really fucking sour.
No, let's follow that.
It's like November expiration is the mark, in my opinion, that I've seen the most consistency in, and in full on bear looking to rage. These things, look, it's like we've seen it. It can take weeks to play out. But the one thing that I've noticed, at least within myself, is like, and I appreciate what you just said, Bender. The one thing that I noticed for sure is I'm usually 3 to 4 days early.
Yeah.
When I go ahead and I make a decision to go ahead and punch it one way or the other.
Yeah.
So 3 to 4 days, I'm usually early on the spidey senses kicking in, which is not bad, but it can be frustrating at the same time. The only thing I'll say is, and again, thank you again for the words, that November expiration is problematic. It just is. It's built out for legitimate butt fucking. So I'm going to continue to watch that. We need to see a lot of bid side put action coming in out to November. I think it's November 18th for some reason. That November time period is not all that pretty. Anyways, Stockington, tell us about what you're going to tell us about.
Good morning. If I'm picking up some of these signals here this morning, it sounds like hell's expectations of NVIDIA were too high. To be nice to them for sucking.
Well, okay, hang on a second. The numbers are the numbers. I can digest the numbers. Leadership being a bunch of just fucking pussies. It's prime time, baby. Get up there and dance, motherfucker. And you did not. That's my issue with NVIDIA. It's prime time. The lights are on. Ship's going down. And you're like, I guess we all going to die until we don't. Fuck off, man. You get paid millions and millions
on
of
the
dollars.
flip side, and I'm just going to throw this out there. On the Intel call, they said, we believe that everything that we've set up for that this quarter and potentially next quarter, it should be the bottom for Intel. We are set up to kill it moving forward, and I think you want to hear stuff like that, right? Like we've got all the puzzle pieces in place. We've got to get through this next quarter, and that should be the bottom as far as revenue goes.
You 100%. But
anyway,
it is
continue.
Intel. It is Intel, and they have had cock in their fucking mouth, ass, ears, elbow, underpits. They've had 8 consecutive quarters of just eating it. So yeah, it's like eventually, you expect somebody to be like,
they gotta, get off the casting couch and get to work. But yeah, continue, Stompy, please.
I'd bring it back to expectations and opened up all that. All right. Inside bars, watch list is the focus. So we got this little drift up, and a lot of these are actually sitting on the call line. Roku, 69.85 was my line. So if we're gonna, the flow on Roku was pretty much all bear this week, but if it's gonna go up, it's got yesterday's upper orb above at 70.3, and then I had a fib where the high of day basically yesterday was 70.9. And then if we're going to go down, it looks like we've got like volume profile line at 69.15 ish. So just going to kind of watch reaction, take it slow on Roku, just because it's get moved up, but the flow says bear. Upstart was a double inside day, and is now sitting up around yesterday's upper orb at 27.5. I had this line, so if it's going to go down, I had this line at 27. And then yesterday's high was 27.95. So we can kind of see what Upstart's going to do. Also had some bears in the flow. And then we've got Coin. That was an inside day. It's now kind of come back to sit on this call side trigger, which was 72.25. So we've got, if it's going to move to the upside, we've got yesterday's upper orb, 73.4, and then I had a fib was basically yesterday's high of day as well, 74.25. If coin's going to go down, I've got 71.5, and then yesterday's lower orb was 70.75. So just going to be keeping an eye on those, watch flow, and see what we get.
All right. We have 12 minutes open, something like that. Let's get comfortable. Let's go ahead and see what they're going to give us. Should be a really, really interesting day with Jackson Hole tomorrow. Just would like to, last note is profit is what keeps you in the game. You will always have an opportunity to buy at a level of support and at the right time. You will always have that opportunity. And buying them later, it's A-okay. A-okay. It's all about your entry and then timing your exit. That's what trading is. Remember that. Don't fall in love with the position. Don't fall in love with an options trade. Don't fall in love. Don't do it. That's all I have to say. We'll see you guys in a few minutes. Bender, Stockington, thank you for a wonderful morning. We'll see you soon.
Thanks, House.